It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
We've got tons to do here. Abortion. I want to tell you the latest numbers. Trump and Charlottesville. Since we were the first to really expose the lies here, we want to revisit that because these things may come up during the debate, very likely. The judge in the classified documents case in Florida. More hearings today. They're trying to destroy this judge. I don't know if I'll agree with her rulings or not, but she's very solid. And the assault on Jews across the country during the Biden regime, through the roof. Through the roof. And that's just some of what we're going to hit tonight. But first, I want to discuss something that is very, very upsetting and very depressing. It's in the New York Post. It's everywhere now. Illegal immigrants lured Jocelyn Nungary, 12, under a bridge, assaulted her for 2 hours before killing her. Prosecutors said these are illegal aliens. One of them came into this country last month. The illegal Venezuelan migrants, Venezuela, accused of murdering Jocelyn Nungary in Houston, lured the 12-year-old girl under a bridge where they stripped her naked to the waist and assaulted her for 2 hours. Disturbing new court documents allege. Franklin Jose Pena Ramos, 26, and Johan Jose Rangel Martinez, 21, allegedly bound Jocelyn's hands behind her back during the brutal assault. 2 hours. Can you imagine what this little 12-year-old girl was thinking? I know what she was thinking, Mr. Perdue. You know what it was? Mommy, where's my mommy? Help me. Somebody help me. Then they strangled her, which I'm sure is a very horrible and painful way to die, and dumped her body in a bayou. How human beings treat other human beings? Folks, that border's wide open. He's not closing it. If he gets 4 more years, he's never going to close it. And these people are going to be in the country permanently because we have a messed up, red tape, bureaucratic system. Pena Ramos also allegedly asked his employer at a construction site for money so he could skip town after the murder, prosecutors said. Both men are charged with capital murder for Jocelyn's death. Harris County DA Kim Ogg said prosecutors have not ruled out pursuing the death penalty in the case. I don't care how long it takes. They need to be killed. Pen Ramos appeared in court today where a judge said his bond at $10 million. And good for the judge. Pena Ramos, 26, crossed the southern border illegally at El Paso, Texas, just last month. The Post first reported last week, Pena Ramos cut his ankle monitor off 2 days after Jocelyn's body was found in the swampy bayou in Houston on Monday. Department of Homeland Security sources told the Post. By the way, there's 85,000 minors who are missing. They don't know where they are under the Biden regime. He'll attack Trump for caging, doing this. This guy is horrendous, Biden. All this inhumanity going on. Does he act like he gives a crap? Rangel Martinez was also given an ankle monitor but had it removed on May 15 because authorities determined he had no known criminal history and appeared at his required check-in. Pena Ramos was set to appear before an immigration judge in July, while Rangel Martinez was set to appear in immigration court in August. Both of the accused of immigration holds, which ICE uses to ensure they remain in custody. Jocelyn snuck out of her home at 10 p.m. on Sunday, according to investigators. She was later seen in surveillance footage at a convenience store, local convenience store, where the suspects were seen following her as she walked into the store. Jocelyn's mother, Alexis Nungari said she believes her daughter was taken advantage of by her killers. I'm angry that they took advantage of her. She was so young, the grieving mother told KHOU, so young. Jocelyn's funeral will take place Thursday. Will be paid for by Texas furniture tycoon Jim Mattress Mac McInvale. Houston resident found Jocelyn's body the day after she snuck out of her house. At first, the local, who'd been driving by the creek, thought the body was a mannequin. I did a U-turn and I stopped on the bridge, but my flashers on, looked down and realized it was someone. I parked here and called 911 immediately, she said. The two Venezuelan migrants, these are Biden migrants, let's stop playing games around here, were arrested Thursday at a local apartment complex where they'd been living together as roommates. When cops showed up, one of them tried to jump over a balcony in an attempt to flee, but was ultimately nabbed by authorities. Remains to be seen whether the two alleged killers were connected to the violent Venezuelan gang El Tren de Aragua. Yeah, never heard of them prior to Biden, did you? There have been many stories of illegal migrants, that is aliens, committing heinous crimes of late. Earlier this month, an Ecuadorian allegedly raped a 13-year-old girl whom he bound and gagged in broad daylight in a Queens Park. They're into rape, these violent thugs. The alleged rapist, Christian Giovanni, crossed the border illegally into Eagle Pass, Texas in 2021. He was ordered removed by an immigration judge the next year, but never left. Authorities also arrested a migrant from El Salvador who crossed illegally into the U.S. 3 times in 2 months, was booted, and then made it undetected on his 4th try and went on to allegedly rape and murder Maryland mother of 5, Rachel Morin. So how does Biden respond to that? He'll have some phony answer about how many people died under Trump and so forth. There's a difference when you're really trying to secure the border. You go to court to try and move funds around in order to build the wall versus somebody who burns it all down. Now, this grieving mother spoke to the press briefly today, and it's heartbreaking. Cut 27, go.
I thank everybody for being here to make notice, a national notice for my daughter. She was amazing. I still see her face in the back of my head every day, all day. Keep getting little signs about her throughout the days, and it's just been a very, very hard time for me and my family. But the amount of support I've been getting from everybody it's very, it's from the bottom of my heart, so appreciated. I hear her sayings just replaying over and over on in a loop in my brain. Her dorkiness, her quirkiness, she definitely made people laugh. She's I'm always gonna remember those memories because she had such a bright future ahead of her, and I knew she was gonna go very far. And these monsters took that opportunity from her, from our family, of watching her. And I just want people to remember, I know this is a very high profile case, but she was still my firstborn. I was a teen mom. I fought for her at 15. So 27 now, I'm still fighting for her. And just remember that she was a very special little girl that deserves her justice. And I know she's going to make a difference in this world for all children. And now it's my job to make sure it continues to happen.
You know, America, what happened to the manliness in this society? What happened to it? These two bastards raped for 2 hours and then strangled to death one of our little baby girls. That's America's little girl. The 13-year-old. It's America's little girl. The mother of 5. That's America's mother. The government keeps telling us to pay our taxes, 4,000 different rules to follow, change your air conditioning unit, do this, do that. Damn it! It's time that the government does what we tell it to do. Secure that damn border, fix our criminal justice system, and put these bastards away! Our children are not about politics. I don't want to hear the BS anymore about how Americans kill Americans. We deal with that. Well, what does that mean? Illegal aliens can come in the country and kill Americans too? What kind of logic is that? Won't secure the damn border. This befuddled, demented president, they're going to have him all juiced up. They'll be told he wins the debate no matter what Trump does. He's killing our country, our society, our people. Another Jewish family was violently attacked. A synagogue was violently attacked. You didn't hear about this under Trump, or when you did, like the shooting in Pittsburgh, he put his foot down. It's all over the country now. All over the country. People coming in here from the Middle East. People coming in here from communist China. People coming in, God knows where. And we're supposed to acquiesce to this. We're supposed, oh, it's okay. It's Donald Trump's fault. It's America's fault. It's your fault. No, it's not. We're being abused. Our children are getting murdered and raped. And does it seem like Joe Biden gives a damn or Kamala Harris gives a damn? Running around today talking about abortion. Abortion? Is there a problem with abortion? Right here. And why I'm the only one mentioning this, I'll never know. The Guttmacher Group, radical left-wing pro-abortion organization. They're better data than anybody else. New findings from the monthly abortion provision study show that an estimated 1,037,000 abortions occurred in the formal healthcare system in 2023. Congratulations, Joe! 1 million babies. The first full calendar year after the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Dobbs. Ready? This represents a rate of 15.9 abortions per 1,000 women of reproductive age and is an 11% increase since 2020, the last year for which comprehensive estimates are available. It's also the highest number and rate measured in the United States in over a decade. So, people are having trouble getting abortions? That's not what the data show from a radical left-wing group. So they're running around talking about abortion. We're going to take the right away of a woman. There's going to be a national law. The Supreme Court just said there can't be a national law. It's up to the states. But they lie. They lie about everything. And so do their media. This little 12-year-old girl, I can't get this out of my mind, Mr. Producer. I can't get it out of my mind. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter. We do. I can't get it out of my mind what that poor little girl was going through. And these two pigs, these two monsters. It's funny, they denied Donald Trump due process and equal protection. They set him up with a Biden judge and a Soros prosecutor and a left-wing clap. But they'll spend 30 years on due process with these two pieces of you-know-what.
Mark Levin. Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
Karine Jean-Pierre on the Morning Schmo Show, and of course she wasn't challenged with her lies. Did you know grocery prices are down under Joe Biden? Cut 9, go.
So yes, eggs and milk, and there were grocery things that were up. It has gone down. It has gone down since 2022. Gas prices, because of the actions that this president took, and let's not forget there was an invasion, but Russia did obviously into Ukraine that caused gas prices to tick up. The president took action, tapped the SPR, and we saw gas prices go down. The president has met the moment with every issue that we have had in front of us.
That's enough. They're not paying her enough to destroy her reputation. E.J. Antoni of the Heritage Foundation, just a couple weeks ago, Biden pretends rising food prices are not a problem. President Biden was just told that food prices are up over 30% on his watch. Got that? Over 30%. But he dismissed this fact, claiming people have money to pay those elevated prices. The drop in purchasing power has many families relying on credit cards to make ends meet, pushing outstanding balances to $1.1 trillion, a historic record. Americans' incomes haven't risen nearly as quickly as food prices during the Biden regime, resulting from failed public policy. And so she's regurgitating what he is. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, average weekly paychecks have increased only $150 under Biden, or 14.1% in roughly 3 years. Normally that would be cause for celebration, but not in an inflationary environment of Bidenomics, because prices have risen on average 19.3% during his tenure. The average real or inflation-adjusted weekly paycheck has shrunk by about $50 or 4.4%. Today's larger paychecks buy less. This is stagflation, as I keep explaining. And consumers are being squeezed by higher prices everywhere. The drop in purchasing power has many families relying on credit cards to make ends meet. Interest rates on that debt is at a record high. And contrary to Biden's claims, it doesn't sound like Americans have the money to pay 30% more for food. And look, some basic food products are up 100, 120, 200%. As Americans put more necessities on their credit cards, finance charges alone have exploded to over $200 billion a year. If people can't afford rent and food, they certainly can't afford mounting interest costs. Now, those higher interest costs can also be seen on mortgages, student loans, car loans. Between these higher finance charges and the lost buying power from declining real earnings, a typical American family has lost, ready? $8,100 of their annual income compared with when Mr. Biden took office. You feel the pinch. They're trying to talk you out of it. And those higher interest costs are seen on mortgages, student loans, car loans. Between these higher finance charges and the lost buying power from declining real earnings, stagflation. A typical American family lost $8,100 on their annual income under Biden. Under Biden. This hits lower-income families particularly hard because consumers shift their buying habits when inflation is high to save money. As middle and even upper-income shoppers buy lower-priced items from their grocer to save money, there's a surge in demand for foodstuffs that were disproportionately bought by lower-income households. In other words, now there's more buyers for the lower-priced goods. Eggs are just one example of this phenomenon. They've historically been a relatively inexpensive source of protein, vitamin D, and other nutrients. As more Americans swap purchases of things like beef with eggs to save money to get your protein, the higher demand for eggs has pushed prices up much faster than the average inflation rate for food. That's a key reason why egg prices are up 41% under Bidenomics. Eggs aren't the only things at the grocery store that will induce sticker shock. I'm going through all this because look how they just lie. Now, you know this, but they just lie. Prices of other consumer staples such as flour, sugar, butter have skyrocketed in price under Biden's tenure, increasing 38.3%, 30.7%, 35.9%, respectively. But Americans' incomes haven't risen nearly as quickly as food prices have during the Biden administration, resulting from failed public policy, spending and borrowing trillions of dollars we didn't have, manipulating interest rates and printing money to try and pay it all has crushed American consumers under an elephantine cost of living and burgeoning debt. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. It's a disaster. And even Janet Yellen now adding to the lies. Cut 10, Mr. Producer, go.
What impact would Donald Trump have on our economy if he's elected?
Well, look, I'm governed by the Hatch Act, and I can't get into electoral politics. I guess I could just make a couple of policy-oriented comments, which is that the signature policy from the Trump years was the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and it promised an investment boom, which really did not materialize. It gave huge tax breaks to corporations.
All right, let's stop. It gave huge tax breaks to everybody. Across the board, corporations the least. And the economy exploded in terms of growth until the pandemic. In the last months of, really about the last year of the Trump presidency, the economy was picking up. It was starting to grow again. Biden comes in and he overloads it with cash. That's what you're suffering from right now. Why is that? Well, think about that this way. If you go to a grocery store and it has an overabundance of a particular product, they have to reduce the price to sell it. Well, that's how the market works with currency. If there's too much currency that's created and it's not based on gold or silver, there's no standard, then you've got all these dollars chasing the limited number of goods. You create inflation. You create market dislocations. So people aren't responding to an actual market system, they're responding to government. There's a reason why the stock market is all stoked up and pumped up. She talks about corporations. Major corporations are doing great under Biden. It's small businesses that are suffering, restaurants that are suffering, hardware stores that are suffering, mechanics, and I can go on and on and on, who are suffering. The big boys are doing great under Biden. A lot of them are supporting Biden. But the point is, the middle class is suffering under Biden. You can't have food going up 30%, and particular kinds of food like eggs going up over 40%, and flour and sugar and butter going up 30, 35, 39%. These are basic things that people need. I haven't even gotten to bread and milk and all the rest of it. This affects households across America, regardless of who you are. And if you're earning a minimum wage, the answer isn't to artificially increase it so you destroy small businesses or franchisers. The answer is the government needs to stop creating stagflation. It won't work. Didn't work in post-World War I Germany. Didn't work in Zimbabwe. Doesn't work anywhere in the world. People suffer because the money's not worth anything, and people go back to bartering. They go back to bartering. Look, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You're living it. When's the last time you took a vacation? When's the last time you went to Disney World? It's been a long time for us, very long. But I'm told people are literally going into debt on their credit cards to take their kids to Disney for 4 or 5 days. That a park pass is so expensive, the food's so expensive, and on it goes. I'm not even singling out Disney. This could be anywhere. Universal, it could be a local amusement park. It's not because everybody's out to screw you. It's because everybody has to cover their costs. And under inflation, personnel costs go up. Material costs go up. Food costs go up. Utility costs go up. Everything goes up. Except the value of your dollar, which goes down. This is what Trump was warning against. He said inflation is a country killer. Regardless of their best efforts, Biden did this, and his proposed budget proposes trillions more. And what did we get for this? 7 electric vehicle charging stations for $7 billion? Internet for the poor and for people who don't have it, $42.5 billion. Not one house has been hooked up. What kind of record is this? He'll talk about, I have this internet legislation that'll hook up, but they don't. It hasn't hooked up anybody. Anybody. Look at the cost of automobiles, artificially high because he demands that everybody drive an electric vehicle. And the people who demand it don't drive electric vehicles. They absolutely don't. News people aren't driving electric vehicles. I mean, a few of them, but most of them are not. Most members of Congress aren't driving electric vehicles. Some are, most aren't. Most members of the Biden administration aren't. John Kerry relies on the combustion engine for almost all things. You can't take natural gas out of production or the pipelines for delivering it and do anything but drive up the cost of gas. And you can't claim on the one hand that you brought down the price of gasoline while on the other hand you're trying to drive the price so high that people can't afford it.
Mark Levin. You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
Well, I'm noticing a pattern, a problem at the United States Supreme Court, ladies and gentlemen, that the leftists on the court, Kagan, Jackson, Sotomayor, and more the rhinos on the court, led by the Chief Justice Roberts, Kavanaugh, who's unreliable, and Barrett, who by the end of her term, I believe, will have flipped all the way to the left. They have a new tactic. And that tactic is to let stand what's being appealed to the court by simply claiming there's no standing. Well, standing is a legitimate issue, but in the case involving the attorneys general of 2 states who challenged what the Biden administration was doing, particularly with Facebook, but also Twitter, that is significant pressure placed on them to determine what would be made available to the American people to manipulate and control information providing to the American people on these social sites. The idea that there wasn't standing is really preposterous. In a federal district court that was so appalled by the factual evidence that it received, and the district court is the trial court level, that judge actually imposed an injunction on the government. Then you had the appellate, that is the circuit court above him, the Fifth Circuit, a panel that lifted the injunction, but also said that this is a significant breach of the First Amendment. It raises many questions. And then you have the Supreme Court that says, I'm sorry, there's no standing here, Mr. Producer. What? If you really want to understand what's at stake, you read Sam Alito's opinion for the dissenters. The dissenters are the hard and fast constitutionalists, Thomas, Gorsuch, and of course Alito, who wrote the opinion. I'm extraordinarily troubled by this. Now notice I'm not going to demand that the Supreme Court be eviscerated as an institution. I'm talking about something else. I'm telling you that Barrett has decided that she's a politician, not a justice. Kavanaugh puts a wet finger in the air and will go one way or the other. Roberts claims he's protecting the institution of the Supreme Court when in fact he's destroying it. And so immediately, the spokesperson for Biden said that they're going to now continue what they were doing, And that is trying to ensure that disinformation doesn't reach you. This is a fascistic/Marxist mindset. The Supreme Court just ducked a critical free speech First Amendment issue with a government, the Biden regime, is trying to manipulate and control information that's provided to you and me. Whether it's involving the vaccines, whether it's involving the Hunter laptop. So now the Biden regime and other like-minded police states are going to be encouraged, motivated to do this and more. And the person who wrote this majority opinion, hiding behind the standing issue, was Amy Coney Barrett. I've been the first to call her out with you. The first to say, you better watch out. What she's doing is problematic now. Then a piece came out about how she disagreed with Clarence Thomas, who did a historical analysis and one of the opinions, and she said, we're not bound by that. And I said, uh-oh, here we go. It underscores the fact that she doesn't think she's bound by anything. So there you have it. There you have it. This isn't Chief Justice William Rehnquist. It's Chief Justice John Roberts. He's a disgrace. He's buddies with Thomas Friedman. He's gone full Washington social circle. This is often typical of justices like Anthony Kennedy, among others. The late Sandra Day O'Connor, even Harry Blackmun, the author of Roe v. Wade. It's a huge problem. Maybe the Supreme Court should be placed in another place. Maybe Palestine, Ohio. I don't know what game the court's playing now. We're waiting for the immunity case, the obstruction case, and what nobody's talking about, even our brothers and sisters on Fox, is the case involving the Chevron decision. The Chevron decision was really the mother of all attacks on capitalism and representative government. And it is the decision. There were other decisions, but it's the pinnacle. They gave so much power to the bureaucracy to write laws and rules and to rule over us as opposed to Congress. And as I told you the other day, unfortunately, Antonin Scalia was involved in that, but later on he regretted it, and he was poised to reverse on that. But, of course, he passed away. So there's a case in front of the court right now that Landmark Legal Foundation is also involved in to fight this former Chevron decision and give us our republic back. All the so-called legal scholars on TV, not one of them has mentioned it. Not one. I also want you to remember when the immunity issue was raised by President Trump, there was only one lawyer in the media, only one, who said this is a serious challenge. Remember that, Mr. Producer? Remember this? I mean, it's amazing now. They're all there. This is a serious case. I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. Nobody does. 3 of them follow the Constitution. 3 of them are up in the air, and 3 of them hate the Constitution. So there you go. But the fact of the matter is, it was always a serious matter. And it remains a serious matter. Your host is also the first one to call out the so-called documents case. Oh, that's a slam dunk, said Bill Barr and his acolytes in cable legal analyst world. It's a slam dunk, you know, he should have turned it over. He was asking for it. It's not a slam dunk. And again, we were right here and they were wrong. That's why you're here, quite frankly, because I don't go with the crowd. I go with what I know. There's nobody more experienced in filing briefs and dealing with appellate courts and the Supreme Court, I'm being honest with, than I, from my work with Landmark Legal Foundation. I saw one person wrote a piece, long piece, as is the individual's one, basically cherry picking from the two briefs that were filed in the challenge to the appointment of Jack Smith under the Appointments Clause. I don't work that way. I don't cherry pick other people's briefs. I will read from them and quote from them and give them the credit they deserve. But it was somewhat confounding and incomprehensible because you got to learn when you're a lawyer to say things in a way that the average person who didn't go to law school and didn't get all confused by all that stuff can understand and relate to. If you don't, it doesn't matter. You're just writing to impress yourself and people around you. It doesn't work. It's different when you file a brief with the court. You're dealing with the same kind of background, the same kind of profession. That's fine. It's like when everybody asks, what medicines do you take, Mark? The name of the medicines, Mr. Producer, are so complicated. I don't know. I just take what they tell me to take. Well, is it this one? I don't know. And same thing. If you had me wire a house as an electrician, I'd burn it down. If you asked me to do the job of a plumber, I would know hot from cold. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. But if I'm using information provided by somebody else, so forth, I would say, plumber XYZ told me, good guy, that's what we do. No, it doesn't work that way, apparently, anymore. This is basic ethics. So the piece was picking from the two briefs, the Mukasey brief and the Landmark brief. And, well, that's not the way you're supposed to do things. But the documents case has many serious aspects to it, as we said here. The Appointments Clause is a very, very serious matter, as we said here. How did I know? Because Landmark's been working on it. And because my former boss and mentor, Ed Meese, working with two professors, one of whom was a colleague of mine at the Justice Department, Professor Stephen Calabrese, he told me, we knew, I read it. Serious matter. So the Appointment Clause is a serious matter. The documents case has serious constitutional issues. Everybody's now sitting and waiting for the immunity case where they all dismissed it. Every damn one of them, didn't they, Mr. Producer? Way over the top. I mean, way over the top. Now, I don't know how the Supreme Court's going to rule America. I don't know if they're going to cut the baby in half or hand the baby over to Biden or whatever. I'm sure Trump won't get a full victory if he gets a partial victory. But I don't even look at things that way. I look at it, what does the Constitution say? And if it says nothing, did the framers provide us with any guidance whatsoever? And if they didn't, then you know what the third test is for me? Then how do you do the least amount of harm to these institutions? How do you do the least amount of harm to these institutions? Barrett has become a disaster. However she votes, doesn't matter. She has no working doctrine on how you interpret a court. She's clearly not an originalist. And if you stray from being an originalist, you're nothing. You're making up your own rules as you go along, but you have nothing principled based on the Constitution, based on the framers, based on the history to apply to your decision, other than you happen to be somebody who's on the court and you feel this way or that way. So this was an abomination today that the court did not have the courage to take on what is a black and white case of an administration undermining the First Amendment, trying to control freedom of speech, And now it's going to go further. Supreme Courts in the past have made horrendous decisions. The fact that this court made a decision to hide behind standing where the lower court and the circuit court didn't find any standing problems will be one of the reasons why it will be condemned. There'll be reasons why it will be praised. But this will be one of the reasons it'll be condemned, because without free speech, we have a tyranny. And this is a black and white case where every aspect of the bureaucracy was used to try and shut down even discussion online among American citizens, sharing information, right or wrong, good or bad. And yet the irony is, it was the federal government. The 6-foot rule was based on nothing. The vaccines were not adequately tested. And all the rest. They just handed the Biden administration a massive iron fist. Good job.
Mark Levin. The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
So how bad is the crime illegal aliens are doing to American citizens? We don't know. They're not keeping records. How many people have been killed, raped, sold into sex slavery? We don't know. We don't know. We only hear about the tip of the iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg is very bloody. There is a fairly long clip, Trump campaign ad clip. We're not going to play it all, but I want you to listen to some of this. Go ahead.
Police have tracked down a killer whose crimes spanned the country. The man accused of killing a Maryland mother of 5 on a popular hiking trail has been captured in Oklahoma. Rachel Marin was dragged from a hiking trail in Maryland where she was raped and murdered. Hernandez allegedly has ties to the notorious MS-13 gang and entered the country illegally in February of last year.
The sheriff says that he fled to the U.S. illegally after murdering a woman in El Salvador in January of 2023. Just 1 month before he entered the U.S. last year, Interpol issued an arrest warrant for Hernandez.
We are 1,800 miles away from the southern border, and the American citizens are not safe because of failed immigration policies. This is the second time in just 2 years that an innocent Harford County woman has lost her life to a criminal in our country illegally.
As far as I'm concerned, the Biden administration has the blood of Rachel Marin in their hands.
2 officers were shot overnight. The suspect also shot in the exchange of gunfire.
Police also saying that suspect Bernardo Raul Castro Mata currently resides at a migrant shelter not too far away from here.
Christian Inga was arraigned today in New York City on charges of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl after school last week in a shocking daylight attack. Police say the 25-year-old migrant from Ecuador approached 2 teens in the park at knife point. According to the criminal complaint, the suspect tied the boy and girl to one another, gagged them, then raped the girl before fleeing the scene. Police say Inga entered the U.S. illegally through Eagle Pass, Texas, back in 2021.
We've also learned from law enforcement here in New York that Christian Ingalandi was actually ordered to go back to Ecuador just a year later in 2022. Had he been deported, we may not have this case that has really struck a chord with people here in New York City, but even people around the country.
A Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua has victimized thousands through extortion, drug and human trafficking, kidnapping, and murder. And now U.S. law enforcement, including Customs and Border Protection and the FBI, say the gang has made their way into the country.
U.S. Border Patrol Chief Jason Owens, who has confirmed multiple arrests of alleged Tren de Aragua members over the last year, issued a warning in early April after reporting yet another arrest.
Watch out for this gang, he said. It is the most powerful in Venezuela, known for murder, drug trafficking, sex crimes, extortion, and other violent acts.
Today, an illegal immigrant who killed someone in Troy is set to be sentenced. Carlos Corrales Ramirez pleaded guilty to the deadly stabbing last month. He admitted to killing a man near River and Dow Streets last September. The Honduras native was also charged with a stabbing in Maryland last February. He was arrested for that crime, but was later released because Maryland officials never extradited him.
8 individuals, all from the Central Asian country of Tajikistan, were arrested in Los Angeles, New York, and Philadelphia. They entered the United States this year and in 2023, crossing the Mexican border. They were vetted and allowed to remain in the country. CBS News has learned further investigation uncovered the men had possible ties to ISIS-K.
5 men in the U.S. illegally were arrested Monday morning in Northeast Missouri after a teenage girl was reported missing.
All right, it goes on and on and on. These are things that shouldn't be happening in our country. Law enforcement's getting overwhelmed by this, and we're not going to catch them all, are we? Look at the people, the inhumanity that's taking place here. And Biden will go up there and say, I told them to pass bipartisan immigration reform. Ladies and gentlemen, this level of illegal immigration, this invasion, the crimes, the terrorists, didn't start occurring to this extent until Joe Biden became president. He can point fingers everywhere else, and you'll see during this debate, that's all he does. Trump and the Republicans and Trump. NBC, per Breitbart, Biden's deputies hunt for 50-plus migrants delivered by Islamic State. Islamic State-tied smugglers. President Joe Biden's deputies are hunting for at least 50 migrants who were delivered by a smuggling network with a claim tied to the Islamic State Jihad network. NBC News reported the official leaked 2 days before the 2024 presidential debate. They reported the Department of Homeland Security has identified over 400 immigrants who have come to the U.S. from Central Asia and elsewhere as subjects of concern because they were brought by an ISIS-affiliated human smuggling network, 3 U.S. officials tell NBC News. While over 150 of them have been arrested, the whereabouts of over 50 remain unknown. And Immigration and Customs Enforcement is looking to arrest them on immigration charges when they are located, officials said. The alarm follows Biden's deliberate policy, writes Breitbart, to admit millions of unidentifiable migrant men from more than 150 countries around the world. The inflow includes tens of thousands of people from Afghanistan, which was the home base for al-Qaeda's attack on the Twin Towers in 2001. And by the way, Afghanistan is like the Star Wars bar scene, but with terrorists. Every leading terrorist organization now is populating Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all of them. I wonder what they're plotting, Mr. Producer. Since the start of fiscal 2021, almost 400 migrants who appear on the terrorist watch list have been detained along the border attempting to enter the United States. 400. Over 400. In mid-June, the acting director of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, told News Nation that border agents often have no background information on the people who are caught and then released under Biden's pro-migration policies. Well, we're going to get background information on people who sneak in from Afghanistan or communist China or Iran or Syria. You're not. There can't be serious vetting. And there won't be. It's quite common where there's just nothing, where you don't have anything. There's no criminal conviction. There's no threat information or whatever on these individuals. As soon as we become aware of any information like this case we're working and collaborating with the FBI, we went out and we got them, says Patrick Leitledner. However, the accuracy, timing, and purpose of the leak claimed to NBC are unclear. The leak report may be designed to help freeze or flush out the 50 remaining migrants. I don't know what the thinking is behind it. I just know that it is what it is. Is that not appalling? And it's like, no big deal. No big, what's the big deal? It's the big deal. And they have their argument ready. I've told you this for weeks now. The argument's going to be when something horrific happens, it's Trump's fault and the Republicans. They didn't pass our bipartisan bill. Ladies and gentlemen, since Joe Biden has been in office, since he issued that executive order, that phony order about a month ago, still criminals, fentanyl, terrorists are coming across the border. It was a fig leaf. It was a fraud and a phony. That's why they issued a secret memo in the San Diego sector with 100 countries exempted from his executive order. All Joe Biden talks about is we're going to pass laws and do that. That's not the test. The test is action. The test is consequences. And the point is, at this level, in this way, it simply wasn't happening until Joe Biden became president. It's that simple. Hillary Vaughn asked Democrats, Hillary Vaughn, the great reporter on the Hill from Fox, about the murder of Jocelyn Nungray. She's on Capitol Hill yesterday. Take a listen. Cut 2, go.
Can I ask you quickly about the 12-year-old girl in Houston that was tortured?
I'm strangers. I don't even know who you are, and I don't know who she is. I live in Pittsburgh.
Okay, but there was a child who was killed at the...
I don't know anything about it.
You don't know about the child that was killed by illegal immigrants? Should we be releasing people until we are absolutely certain of their intentions and whether or not they are potentially going to end up killing an American?
Oh, I think it really is important to make sure that we know people's intentions, and we have a process for that. Sometimes people slip through the cracks.
It's unfortunate that anybody's killed, obviously, but immigrants, legal or illegal, commit crimes that are very far lower than native born Americans.
Stop. Where does he get that information from? Look how he immediately moves to a political response. But as I've said for years behind this microphone, over 20 years, one has nothing to do with the other. We deal with American citizens who are criminals, who, by the way, Jerry Nadler has no problem with either. Soft on crime, activist judges, and so forth. But look, the fact is we have a lot of criminals in America who do horrible things. But that doesn't mean you open your borders to other criminals from other countries who do horrible things to our people. What is the rationale here? Where's the logic? There is none. But that's the answer if you don't want to do anything about it and if you don't give a damn. And Nadler doesn't give a damn. This fool, Representative Summer Lee from the Pittsburgh area, she doesn't give a damn. This guy, Maxwell Frost, is no Maxwell Smart, that's for sure. He doesn't give a damn. Now, Pramelia Jayapal, if that is her name, of Seattle. Go.
Undocumented immigrants commit far fewer crimes than anyone else.
But aren't these crimes preventable if we didn't parole them into the country?
And she walks away because the answer is 100% preventable if we didn't parole them into the country. But they have their answer now. Americans are worse than foreigners. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to the logic. How many 9/11 terrorists were there, Mr. Producer? 19, something like that? That's not a lot. That's not a lot. And so the answer is, well, Americans do commit far more crimes than illegal alien. Well, that's, ladies and gentlemen, what does that have to do with anything? Nothing. So why would you throw out pablum like that? Because you don't care. This representative, Summer Lee, she knows who the hell this young girl is, Jocelyn. It's all over the news. She knows. She doesn't care. Maxwell Frost, he doesn't care. Jerry Nadler could give a damn. Pramelia Jayapal doesn't say anything. They don't say we need to secure the border, we need to protect our people. That's why the American people, I hope, on Election Day are going to be fed up with this, no matter what happens in the debate tomorrow night. No matter what happens. Because these are Biden's policies. Well, you know, we had a bipartisan piece of legislation, and you, Donald Trump, you told them that as if that would stop a thing, when in fact it enshrines 2 million illegal aliens coming into this country every single year. It fixes nothing. The money in the bill. This is the problem. They'll throw this stuff out. It takes time to answer. And the moderators won't give Trump that time. Isn't even spent until 2028. And most of it's for processing, not for securing. The most secure bill ever passed. No, it isn't. They just lie.
Mark Levin. We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
36 years ago, when Biden didn't have dementia, he was still a serial psychopathic liar. I just want to remind you, because it's so important, you're getting all this propaganda now from the Democrat media, the Democrat Party, the operatives, and that campaign. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him. I've written extensively when I was a law professor.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship.
I was appointed to the Academy in 1965. I didn't come to the Academy because I wanted to be a football star, and you had a guy named Staubach and Bellino here. So I went to Delaware. I got started out of an HBCU, Delaware State. Now, I don't want to hear anything negative about Delaware State here, okay? They're my folks.
Went back to law school and, in fact, ended up in the top half of my class. I won the International Moot Court competition. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits, and I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like.
I am a hard coal miner, anthracite coal, Scranton, Pennsylvania. My dad was he was a salesperson. He wasn't a coal miner. My great-grandpa was. My first job offer, where I wanted, my wife, deceased wife, and I wanted to move to Idaho because we think, not a joke, it's such a beautiful, beautiful state. And I interviewed for a job with Boise Cascade. I got a commercial license because my dad used to run an automobile agency. I used to drive a tractor trailer.
Awesome.
And so I know a little bit about driving big trucks. It means that I've worked in the East Side. I deliberately went and worked for 3 years to make sure I was the only white guy that worked in the East Side because, I wanted to understand. I was involved in the civil rights movement, but
what did you want to understand?
What I want to understand, I didn't realize, for example, as the only lifeguard in the project, Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you. Off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. He said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors. Not a joke. I used to be a lifeguard for years. And when I ran for the United States Senate, they said, well, why do you want a 29-year-old guy who's only been a lifeguard? Well, the truth was I was a practicing lawyer. I've been a public defender, and I had my own small law firm. The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. You know how much it costs to make that insulin drug for diabetes? Cost. It was invented by a man who did not patent it because he wanted it available for everyone. I spoke to him. Okay?
You better have helicopters ready to take those 3,000 civilians inside the green zone where I've been 7 times and shot at.
Think of Iraq because that's where my son died. Uncle Frank fought in the Battle of the Bulge, and he won the Purple Heart. And he never received it. So I got him the Purple Heart. He had won it in the Battle of the Bulge. And I remember he came over to the house, and I came out, and he said, present it to him. Okay, we had the family there. I watched what happened when the kids from Parkland marched up to, and I met with them, and then they went off to up on the Hill when I was vice president. They went off the Hill to go into those neighborhoods. All those congressmen were like, no, I'm not here. I'm not here. Don't tell them I'm around. God's truth, I traveled over 1,250,000 miles on that track. And one of the conductors I know for years walked up and grabbed, said, Joey, baby, grabbed my cheek.
All alive.
And not a joke.
This day, 30 years ago, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison and entered into discussions about apartheid. I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robbins Island.
I swear to God, true story. I swear to God, true story. True story. They think I'm kidding, man.
There's a ton more, and not a thing he said was true. Nothing. And he lies with exquisite detail. I only needed 123 credits, and I had 165. Exquisite detail. A complete fraud, a complete liar. Look how the media standards have changed. In 1988, Joe Biden would never have gotten away with running for president under his current condition. Period. But not today. Today they rally around him. I'm talking about the media. They lie to us about videos. We see them with our own two eyes. They lie about his economic record, his border record. They help promote his talking points. It's really quite remarkable. And that same media will be in charge of this debate. That same media. It's really quite appalling. Nancy Pelosi was on MSNBC. We have another letter. 16 Nobel laureates in economics. That's a drop in the bucket. There are thousands of economists, many of them accomplished, some of them are Nobel laureates. But they got 16, like they got 51 intelligence and national security types with their lying letter before. And listen to this. Here she goes. Cut 13, go.
So then you look at something else. People are concerned about inflation. 16 Nobel laureates came out this week and said that if what's-his-name were elected president with his fiscal policies, inflation would just increase enormously in our country. And you have Joe Biden on the other side of that screen leading the world in reducing inflation in our country.
You believe these pathological liars? And she's right at the top of the list. There was no inflation when Joe Biden took it. It was 1.4%. 1.4%. Economists view that as no inflation. It shot up to 9% under Joe Biden. And when you look, as Charles Payne points out, at two economies, that is, the extraordinarily wealthy billionaires, multimillionaires, where so much of this printed money is flowing, it's creating inflation, the interest rates are high, and that is why the value of your dollar is going down. You can't purchase what you used to purchase. Your income cannot keep up with inflation. Basics, food, energy, through the roof. The supply chain has been undermined, usurped. It's called stagflation, as I say over and over again. High interest rates, high inflation, the value of the dollar going down, which means people have to charge more for their products and their services. Unfortunately, you can't afford more. You can only afford less. That's stagflation. The economy, just like Joe tonight, took a real shot with a couple $2 trillion that it didn't need coming out of COVID. A real shot, a real massive stimulus like we've never seen in American history. And the consequences are everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And he's made it clear if he's elected again, he wants the Congress to pass a $7 trillion budget. Do you know that this year, and I've explained this before, this year, the deficit for 1 year is going to be close to $2 trillion. Do you know that under Joe Biden, interest on the debt cost you and me more than the entire defense budget? No society can survive this. And on top of this, the border's wide open. There's not another country on the face of the earth that has a wide open border. Not one. Not one. And they're going to try and convince you with their media in hand that Joe Biden deserves a standing ovation, that Trump created all the problems. All the problems. They're also going to talk, I assume, about race. Bring up Charlottesville. I'm sure the president, that is my president, Trump, knows the response to that. Probably bring up Nick Fuentes. You had lunch with Nick Fuentes. And the answer to that, of course, is simple. Maybe I had lunch with Nick Fuentes. Probably a bad idea. But you were buddies with the biggest racist segregationists in American history. When you entered into the Senate, you joined with them. In fact, you led legislation to kill busing integration. So little black kids could go to school with little white kids. You're proud of it. You might remember Kamala Harris ripped you for it. And in 1994, as I've said, he pushed and passed a racist crime bill that targeted black communities. Why? Because it had higher penalties for crack than cocaine. And in the inner cities, crack was more prevalent because it was cheaper than cocaine in the Manhattan, L.A., Chicago skyscrapers used by very, very wealthy people. But you get the point. And he was condemned by the lawyer for the NAACP for his position on race. And he embraced George Wallace and Herman Talmadge and James Eastland and Stennis and Robert Byrd, all of them. Many don't even know who I'm talking about. These were the big-time segregationists who filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. That's Joe Biden.